The stars of the Carthian Empire were quiet when the signal came. At first it was only a small flicker on the scanners, something so weak that the junior officers thought it was just noise. But as the data repeated, the high command grew curious. It was not a natural pulse. It was not a star, not a planet, not even a drifting rock. It was a ship. Somewhere far beyond the border of their empire, a single object was moving toward them at a slow but steady speed. The Carthians were proud of their technology, proud of their vast fleets that stretched across hundreds of systems. No one had dared to challenge them for centuries. So when they saw the lonely ship moving closer, they laughed. An entire empire of trillions, and only one small intruder dared cross the edge of their space. The admiral in charge of the border fleet, Zarvan, smiled coldly as he watched the report. His fleet was strong, 50 battleships and a swarm of escorts. The intruder would be a short, easy lesson to anyone who thought of entering their domain. But something about the signal was strange. The energy signature was not familiar. Their scanners, powerful enough to map the surface of a planet from across the system, could not read the ship. Its shape was unclear, its engines gave no proper readings, and its design matched nothing in their archives. Zarvan frowned, for the Empire had records of every known race, every known ship. But this was unknown. His science officer reported, "Admiral, the object's design, it looks old. Very old. Perhaps thousands of years." The bridge fell silent for a moment, then laughter broke the tension. "An ancient derelict drifting into our border," one captain said over the comms. "Let us claim it as salvage." Yet the ship was not drifting. It moved with purpose, heading directly into Carthian space. The more they scanned it, the less sense it made. Its engines looked weak, yet it traveled faster than their fastest scouts. Its hull looked damaged, yet it held together with impossible strength. No signals came from it. No response to their hails. It simply advanced. The admiral grew annoyed. In the Empire, disrespect meant death. "If they will not answer," Zarvan declared, "then we will make them answer." He ordered his fleet to move out, a shining wall of warships spreading across the darkness. The alien stars glittered behind them, but ahead, only the single shadow of the strange ship. The closer they came, the more the crew felt unease. The scanners glitched. Radar failed. Energy readings bent and twisted like static. It was as if the ship refused to be measured, as if reality itself bent around it. Veteran captains who had fought dozens of wars whispered over secure channels. Something about the silence of that ship, its slow but steady approach, was wrong. It carried no escort, no fleet, no flag of empire, yet it came without fear. The admiral silenced the whispers with anger. "This is a test of our strength," he shouted. "Remember who we are. We are the Carthian Empire. No single ship can stand before us." His words filled the bridge with false courage, but deep in their minds, doubt lingered. As they closed the distance, the ship finally became clear in their visual screens. It was massive, larger than a battleship, but its design was alien to them. The hull was dark, scarred, and yet the scars glowed faintly, like old wounds still burning. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, symbols no one could translate. Some officers swore the symbols shifted when they looked too long, as if alive. The science officer's voice trembled. "Admiral, the material of that hull, it is not on our database. It is not any known element. I cannot explain it." Zarvan's jaw tightened. He had seen strange things before. He had crushed unknown species before. And yet, deep inside, a small voice warned him that this was different. He silenced it and gave the order. "Open a channel." Across the stars, the fleet sent its demand. "Unidentified vessel, this is Carthian space. You are trespassing. Identify yourself, or be destroyed." The words echoed through every ship. They waited. Seconds passed. Then a minute. There was no answer. Only silence, cold and empty. The admiral clenched his fists. "Repeat the message." Again they sent the warning. Again, silence. The ship did not slow. It did not turn. It simply advanced, as if the Empire meant nothing. That was when fear began to spread. Not from what the ship did, but from what it refused to do. It did not defend itself. It did not speak. It did not even notice them. And yet, every instinct screamed that it was dangerous. Some captains asked for permission to retreat and call the Central Fleet. Zarvan refused. His pride was greater than caution. One ship cannot face 50. The Carthian fleet moved closer until the strange ship was fully surrounded. 50 battleships formed a ring of steel and firepower, their weapons armed and ready. Smaller cruisers and escorts darted into position, locking targeting systems, waiting for the command. The admiral sat in his command chair with confidence on his face, but inside, he felt something heavy pressing against his chest. The silent ship kept moving forward, ignoring the wall of warships around it. No answer had come, no signal, not even a flicker of light from its hull. To the proud Carthians, this silence was worse than an insult. It was a challenge. The admiral spoke again, his voice cold and sharp. Unidentified vessel. This is your final warning. Power down and prepare to be boarded. If you do not obey, you will be destroyed. His words carried across every ship in the fleet, translated into all frequencies. Yet again, silence was the only reply. The crew stared at their screens, confused and nervous. Then something changed. For the first time, the ship reacted. Its surface glowed faintly with pale light, like stars waking on its hull. Energy surged across its body, but it was not energy the Carthians understood. Their sensors began to fail one by one. Radar froze. Thermal scans reported nothing. Energy readings dropped to 0. It was as if the ship had vanished from existence, though they could still see it with their eyes. The bridge filled with alarm reports. Admiral, scanners are blind. Weapons lock is unstable. Communications are breaking. The admiral slammed his fist on the armrest. He refused to show fear. Enough games. Fire warning shots. Make them see our strength. A group of destroyers obeyed, launching a volley of plasma rounds. Bright blue fireballs streaked through the void, aimed directly at the strange ship. The weapons should have burned through shields, melted armor, and left nothing but debris. Instead, the shots never touched the hull. Just before impact, they bent away, curving as though space itself had twisted. The plasma orbs vanished into the darkness without a trace. Gasps filled the bridge. The officers could not believe what they had seen. Weapons did not miss. Not at that range, not with Carthian targeting. Yet the impossible had happened. The admiral leaned forward, his pride burning. That was luck, he growled. Fire again. All ships. The fleet obeyed, and the void exploded with light. Hundreds of plasma bolts, rail slugs, and missiles screamed toward the single ship. For a moment it looked as if a star itself had burst. But again, not a single weapon reached the target. Beams bent away, slugs dissolved into dust, missiles simply blinked out of existence as if erased. The alien ship moved on, untouched, unstoppable. Panic spread across the comms. Our weapons are useless. It cannot be hit. What is this thing? The admiral shouted them into silence, but inside his heart trembled. Nothing in the galaxy had ever defied their weapons before. As the chaos rose, the ship finally answered, not with words, but with action. A glow built at its core, bright and sharp, forming into a single point of light. Then, in an instant, a beam shot out, silent and pure. It cut through space like a blade, and where it touched, a Carthian battleship simply came apart. There was no explosion, no fire, no wreckage. The ship was sliced in half so smoothly that its pieces drifted apart in silence, crew and all, lost before they even knew they were dead. The comms erupted with screams and static. Officers shouted warnings, captains begged for orders, and the fleet broke into panic. The admiral's face went pale as he realized this was no ordinary enemy. This was power beyond their science, beyond their imagination. He whispered without meaning to, "What kind of weapon was that?" The science officer's voice shook. "Admiral, it was not any energy we know. It was like space itself cut open." The crew could not understand it, but their fear grew heavier with every second. The admiral gave the command to regroup, but the fleet was already breaking apart. Some ships tried to flee, others fired wildly, none of it mattered. The strange ship moved forward, calm and slow, as if nothing around it posed any threat at all. Its lights pulsed again, and every Carthian knew another strike was coming. The silence of the void pressed down on them. Their weapons had failed, their numbers meant nothing, and the enemy had not even spoken a word. For the first time in centuries, the Carthian fleet felt the cold taste of fear. And in that fear, one question grew stronger than all others. What was this ship? And who had sent it into their empire? The fleet hung in shock as the wreck of their destroyed battleship drifted apart. No one spoke at first. They had seen war, they had seen ships fall in flames, but never like this. The human ship had cut through their strongest war vessel as if it were made of paper. There had been no resistance, no explosion, no wreckage worth salvaging. It was as if the ship had simply been unmade by a force that should not exist. The admiral sat frozen for a moment before rage returned to his voice. "All ships, form a new line. Do not scatter like frightened animals. We are the Carthian Empire. Hold your ground." His voice tried to sound strong, but his crew could hear the crack in it. Across the fleet, captains hesitated. Pride told them to obey, but instinct told them to run. They had seen the impossible, and it had destroyed their courage. Still, discipline held for now, and the ships pulled back into formation. Weapons lit again, engines roared, and the mighty fleet prepared for another strike. Yet the enemy ship drifted forward slowly, calmly, as if none of this mattered. It did not rush, it did not dodge, it did not even seem to acknowledge the fleet around it. Its glow pulsed again, and every Carthian heart stopped for a beat. But this time, instead of one beam, the ship unleashed 3. Each beam found a target instantly, slicing through 3 more warships without hesitation. They died in silence, their hulls splitting apart, crews erased in seconds. 4 ships gone now, without a single human word, without a single mistake. Panic erupted once more. "It cannot be stopped. They are cutting us apart. We must retreat." The admiral roared over the chaos, trying to restore order. "We are warriors. Fight. Do not shame the empire." But his own eyes betrayed his fear. He could not deny what he was seeing. The enemy did not fight like any empire they had known. It fought like something above them, something untouchable. Still, pride demanded he resist. "Fire everything," he commanded. The fleet unleashed its full arsenal. Plasma cannons, antimatter warheads, particle beams, all of it. The void lit brighter than a star, waves of destruction converging on the single ship. And yet once again, nothing touched it. The weapons bent, scattered, erased themselves, as though space refused to let them strike. The admiral's breath caught in his throat. His fleet's power, enough to conquer entire civilizations, meant nothing. Then the human ship pulsed once more, and this time the effect was different. Not just a few beams, but a wave of energy rippled outward. It was silent, invisible at first, but every ship it touched shattered. 10 cruisers broke apart like glass, their hulls collapsing, their engines dark. Entire crews vanished without screams, lost before they even understood they were dead. The fleet that had once filled the void with light now looked broken, scattered wrecks glowing faintly against the stars. The silence that followed was worse than the battle itself. Survivors stared at their screens, trembling, unable to understand. "This is not a ship," one officer whispered. "It is a nightmare." The science officer tried to speak, his voice shaking. "Admiral, I think their technology is bending the laws of physics. Our weapons cannot touch them because they refuse to exist in the same space as our fire. They are untouchable. The words chilled every ear on the bridge. The admiral tried to deny it, but deep inside, he knew it was true. This was not old technology. This was something beyond their understanding, beyond their empire, beyond their entire science. And yet the ship still moved forward, ignoring their desperate resistance. The fleet was collapsing. Many captains were fleeing already, engines burning as they tried to escape the slaughter. Zarvan shouted after them, his voice filled with fury and despair. Cowards! Traitors! Return to the line. But none obeyed. Fear had broken discipline, and discipline was all the Empire had ever used to hold its armies together. Now, with fear in their hearts, the fleet was finished. More beams cut through space, more ships split apart, and the admiral realized the truth. This battle was not a battle. It was an execution. His pride had led them here, and now his fleet was dying for it. He gripped the arms of his chair, eyes wide, heart racing. "What are you?" he whispered to the silent ship. There was still no answer. Only the steady glow, the slow approach, the unstoppable force. Around him, the stars seemed colder, the void darker, as if the universe itself had turned against the Carthians. The mighty fleet that once brought fear to worlds had been shattered instantly, and still the enemy had not revealed its purpose. As wreckage floated through the void and broken ships screamed their last signals, the Carthians finally understood. They were not the hunters anymore. They were the prey. The shattered remains of the Carthian fleet drifted silently in the void, glowing faintly against the starlight. The survivors stared in disbelief at the dark shape of the enemy ship. It had destroyed them without effort, without even breaking its slow and steady course. Pride, arrogance, and centuries of dominance had vanished in minutes. The mighty Empire's war fleet was broken, and yet the enemy had not spoken a single word. The silence was worse than death. The admiral sat frozen in his command chair, sweat sliding down his neck. He had seen battles lost before, but never like this. This was not a fight. This was a slaughter. His officers looked to him for orders, but even he had none. What could they do when nothing they fired touched the enemy? What could they do when every strike from that ship cut their vessels apart like paper? Then, without warning, the silence broke. Across every surviving ship, across every comm channel, a transmission came. It was not static, not noise, but a voice. Calm, steady, and cold. The words were strange at first, but the universal translators struggled to make sense of them. The science officer gasped when the system recognized the language. "Admiral, these words are old. Very old. They belong to a language that died thousands of years ago." The crew leaned closer, listening to the message as it repeated. The voice was deep, human, and filled with authority. "This is human territory. Leave now." The bridge fell silent. For a moment, no one dared to speak. The admiral's jaw dropped. He had heard that word only in legends, in myths told across the empire. Humans. A species believed to be extinct long before the Carthians rose to power. Their name was written in forgotten archives, whispered in stories as ghosts of the past. The empire's scholars had dismissed it. They said humans were weak, scattered, destroyed by time or their own wars. But here, standing before them, was proof. Humans were not gone. They had returned, and their power was beyond comprehension. The admiral's pride fought against the truth. He slammed his fist against his chair and growled. "It cannot be humans. It is a trick. Some lost species using old stories to frighten us." Yet deep inside, he knew the truth. No one else could wield such impossible weapons. No one else could erase fleets with a single strike. The voice came again, colder this time. "You are trespassing. Leave now, or be destroyed." Fear spread through the crew. Captains on other ships begged over comms. "Admiral, we must retreat. We cannot win this. The legends are true." The admiral clenched his teeth. His empire had never bowed, never surrendered. 4 generations, they had crushed every rival, erased entire civilizations that refused their rule. To flee now would be humiliation, and humiliation was worse than death. His pride roared louder than reason. No. We will not retreat. This is Carthian space, not theirs. Humans are dead. This is nothing but an echo of the past. We will show them the Empire still rules the stars. His officers hesitated. They had seen what defiance brought. They had seen entire ships erased in silence. Yet fear of their admiral and fear of dishonor chained them to his command. Slowly, unwillingly, they obeyed. Engines charged, weapons prepared, and the battered survivors moved into a broken line once more. The science officer whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "Admiral, if they are truly human, then our weapons will not matter." The admiral glared at him. "If they bleed, they can be killed. Fire everything." Across the void, the human ship waited silently, glowing faintly with that pale, strange light. It did not rush to strike again. It did not press the attack. It only watched. It was as though it had given them a choice, a warning, and now waited to see what they would do. And the admiral, blinded by pride, had chosen defiance. The fleet's weapons lit again, cannons glowing, missile bays opening. The survivors pushed their fear aside, convincing themselves that somehow, this time, they would succeed. But deep in their hearts, they knew the truth. The silence of the enemy ship felt like judgment. It had given them a chance to live, and they had chosen death. The final order came. Fire. The Carthian fleet unleashed everything they had left. Plasma cannons glowed, missiles streaked across the void, particle beams tore through space like burning rivers of light. The wreckage of their fallen ships still drifted silently behind them, but those who remained poured all their fury into one final strike. They fired as if sheer volume could succeed where precision had failed. They fired as if their pride could bend reality to obey them. For a moment the stars themselves seemed to vanish behind the wall of firepower. It was enough to reduce planets to dust, to burn moons into ash, to erase civilizations in seconds. And yet the human ship did not move. It did not dodge. It did not retreat. It simply stayed in its path, glowing faintly with that strange pale light, as if it had all the time in the universe. Then, before the first shot could even reach it, something impossible happened. The weapons vanished. Missiles turned to dust mid-flight. Plasma blasts broke apart into harmless sparks. Particle beams dissolved into thin air as though the void itself had swallowed them. To the Carthians, it looked as if space refused to carry their weapons, as if the universe itself served the humans. The admiral gripped his chair in disbelief, his eyes wide with fury and terror. "No, no. It cannot be." The comms filled with panicked voices. "Our weapons are useless. Nothing touches it. We are finished." The silence that followed was colder than ice. Then, once more, the human ship answered. Its light pulsed brighter, glowing like a star about to be born. A single ripple of energy spread across its hull, smooth and silent. In the next instant, beams of light shot outward, faster than thought, faster than eyes could follow. They cut through the Carthian fleet like a scythe through grass. Battleships split apart in silence. Cruisers tore into fragments, their engines dying instantly. Thousands of Carthian lives ended in that breath, erased without even the dignity of a final cry. The void was filled with drifting wrecks, glowing sparks, and broken metal. But the human ship did not stop. Another pulse came, and more beams followed. Each shot was precise, clean, absolute. Every ship it struck was destroyed in a single heartbeat. There were no survivors, no second chances, no hope. The mighty fleet that had once carried fear across the stars was collapsing faster than anyone could comprehend. Officers screamed across channels, captains begged for mercy, some tried to flee, but nothing mattered. Wherever they ran, the ship was already there, already aiming, already erasing them. In minutes, 20 more ships were gone. The admiral stared at the screens, his hands trembling, his voice lost. His empire's pride, his fleet's strength, his own command, all of it was turning to ashes before his eyes. The science officer whispered in terror, "This is not war, this is execution." The words sank into the crew like a knife. They were not fighting. They were being judged. And they were failing that judgment. The admiral tried to shout orders, but his voice cracked, breaking into silence. None of his captains listened anymore. Some had already fled, engines burning as they pushed into hyperspace. Others were frozen, unable to move, waiting for the inevitable end. The human ship pulsed again, brighter now, as if it had grown bored with the resistance. A wave of energy burst outward, and for a moment every Carthian system went dark. Screens flickered black, engines cut out, weapons shut down. It was as if their entire fleet had been silenced with a single thought. When the lights returned, half the surviving ships were gone, erased in the blink of an eye. The comms fell silent. No one begged for orders anymore. No one pretended to fight. The admiral finally understood. This battle was lost before it began. His voice broke into a whisper. "We cannot win." Across the stars, the human ship drifted forward slowly, calm and unstoppable, like death itself given form. It had not rushed. It had not shouted. It had not even shown anger. It had simply ended them, one by one, as easily as a child crushing insects. And still, in all this destruction, it had spoken only 2 sentences. 2 warnings. "This is human territory. Leave now." And the Carthians had not listened. Now they were paying the price. The mighty fleet was gone, their weapons silenced, their pride shattered. Only a handful of broken ships remained, powerless and trembling in the shadow of something far greater than themselves. And in that silence, every surviving soul knew one truth. They had awakened something ancient. They had disturbed the humans. The battlefield was silent except for the drifting wrecks of the destroyed Carthian fleet. Where once there had been 50 proud battleships, now only a handful of damaged vessels remained. Their weapons were gone, their engines failing, their crews broken by fear. No orders came from command anymore. The admiral sat in shock, staring at the viewscreen, unable to believe what he was seeing. The human ship floated calmly among the debris, glowing faintly as if it were untouched by the war around it. It had destroyed nearly the entire fleet without effort, without even raising its speed. It seemed to move on its own time, like a predator circling prey that could not escape. Some Carthian captains could no longer bear it. They powered their engines and fled, pushing into hyperspace with desperation. But every time they thought they were safe, the human ship appeared ahead of them. It moved faster than light, faster than thought. One moment it was behind them, and the next it was already waiting in their path. It did not fire immediately, but its very presence crushed hope. To the Carthians it felt as though space itself obeyed the humans, as though no road existed that could lead away from them. On the admiral's bridge, officers cried out in terror. "It's impossible. They block every escape route. We cannot run. We are trapped." The admiral clenched his teeth, rage and despair fighting in his chest. He wanted to order them to keep fighting, to hold the line, but the truth was already clear. Fighting meant nothing. Their weapons did not work, their ships were fragile toys before this enemy, and their courage had already shattered. His pride screamed to resist, but his survival instinct whispered something different. For the first time in his career, the admiral considered begging. Then, without warning, the human ship spoke again. The same voice as before filled every channel, deep and calm. "You were warned." The words cut through the silence like a blade. The survivors froze, their blood turning cold. They had heard the warnings. They had ignored them. Now there was no mercy left. The human ship began to glow brighter, energy gathering across its hull. Every Carthian eye stared at it in horror. They had seen this glow before, and they knew what came next. The beams would fire. The ships would vanish. Their deaths would be instant, silent, and absolute. Captains shouted across comms, begging for mercy. "Please. We surrender. "Spare us. We will leave your space." But the human ship did not reply. It only charged its weapons, the glow rising like a star ready to explode. The admiral closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of his failure. He had brought them here with arrogance. He had refused to retreat when he should have. He had ignored the warnings. And now his fleet was gone, his empire humiliated, his people erased. He whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Forgive me." Then, just as the beams were about to fire, something unexpected happened. The glow faded. The energy vanished. The ship did not attack. Instead, its voice returned, colder and sharper than before. "Leave now. Do not return." The surviving crews blinked in confusion. They were alive. The admiral opened his eyes slowly, hardly believing what he had heard. The humans had spared them. Not because of weakness, not because of fear, but because they had chosen to. That truth cut deeper than any weapon. Mercy was worse than destruction, because it reminded the Carthians of their powerlessness. They were alive only because the humans allowed it. Engines restarted. Broken ships turned away, limping toward hyperspace exits. None of them dared to look back. None dared to speak. The silence of the retreat felt heavier than the silence of battle. The admiral gave no more orders. There was no point. His fleet was gone, his authority shattered, and his empire would soon learn the truth. As the last survivors jumped away, he cast one final look at the human ship. It floated in the void, calm and still, watching them depart. It did not pursue, it did not destroy. It only stood guard, like a shadow waiting for the next intruder. The admiral knew then that the galaxy was no longer theirs. The humans had returned, and nothing would ever be the same again. The surviving Carthian ships limped away into the darkness, engines damaged, crews silent, and hearts filled with terror. They had faced many enemies in the past, but none had ever done this to them. Whole civilizations had fallen before the Carthian Empire, yet here a single ship had broken their might and left them crawling back like frightened animals. On the admiral's bridge, silence pressed heavier than any weapon. No one spoke, no one dared to breathe loudly. Then the screen flickered, and the crew gasped. A transmission was coming directly from the human ship. For the first time, they saw more than the dark silhouette and the glow of its hull. A figure appeared on the screen. A human. He stood calm, tall, with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce through the soul of everyone watching. His face showed no anger, no pity, only cold certainty. His voice was steady as he spoke, and every translator carried his words into the minds of the Carthians. "You have forgotten," he said. "But we remember." The admiral clenched his fists, trembling as the words sank in. The crew looked at one another in disbelief. To see a human alive, to hear their language spoken with such clarity, was something they had never thought possible. The human continued, his voice carrying power that made the void itself feel smaller. "Humans left this galaxy long ago. We walked beyond your stars, beyond your empires, beyond your understanding. But we did not vanish. We did not die. We waited." The officers shifted nervously, their fear growing with every word. Legends they had dismissed as lies were now living truth before their eyes. The admiral tried to speak, his voice weak. "If you left, why return now?" The human's gaze hardened. "To see what remained. To see what has grown in our absence. And we find children. Empires built on arrogance, ships built on fragile metal, rulers who believe themselves gods. But you are nothing compared to us." His words cut like a blade, sharper than the beams that had destroyed their ships. The admiral felt anger rise within him, but it was weak and hollow against the fear that drowned his crew. The human's voice deepened. "You call yourselves conquerors. You call yourselves mighty. But you are only children playing with fire you cannot control." The crew lowered their heads, unable to meet the human's eyes. Even through a screen, his presence was overwhelming, as if the weight of entire civilizations stood behind him. The admiral tried to summon pride. We We are the Carthian Empire. We rule hundreds of systems. We. The human interrupted without raising his voice. You ruled. Until today. The words struck harder than any weapon. The admiral froze, his throat dry, his pride shattered. His officers stared at him with hollow eyes, knowing the truth. The empire that had crushed countless species had been broken in a single battle. The human leaned forward slightly, his expression still calm but filled with warning. Understand this. Humanity has no interest in ruling your empire. We have no need for your worlds or your fleets. But we will not allow you to spread unchecked. The galaxy is ours to protect, and you have proven yourselves unworthy of trust. A wave of silence swept across the bridge. The crew could hardly process what they were hearing. Protect. The humans spoke as if the galaxy itself belonged to them, as if every star, every world, every life was theirs to oversee. It was madness. Yet after what they had witnessed, who could deny it? The humans' final words carried the weight of judgment. Return to your worlds. Tell your rulers what you have seen. And remember this day, for it is mercy you will not be offered again. The screen went dark. The human ship remained ahead of them, silent, glowing faintly like a guardian of forgotten power. The admiral slumped back in his chair, his heart racing, his pride broken. He had wanted victory, but he had brought his people face to face with something far greater. His fleet was gone, his honor lost, and his name would forever be tied to this disaster. Yet deeper than his shame was a new terror. Humanity was back. Not weak, not extinct, but stronger than anything the galaxy had ever known. And if this was only one ship, the admiral dared not imagine what an entire human fleet would be like. The Carthian Empire had believed itself unshakable, eternal. But in the silence of the void, one truth echoed louder than all others. The humans had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Carthian fleet crawled home like broken animals, their ships cracked and their spirits shattered. The news spread faster than hyperspace could carry them. Entire systems whispered of the defeat, of the mysterious human ship that had crushed the Empire's might in a single battle. At first, many rulers and generals refused to believe the story. They laughed at the survivors, calling them cowards who had fled from shadows. But then came the evidence, the wreckage, the recordings, the voices of terrified crews who swore the same words. The humans have returned. Fear began to grow like a storm across the Empire. On the capital world, the High Council gathered in a great chamber of stone and steel. The surviving admiral stood before them, head bowed, his body trembling with shame. He spoke the truth as he had seen it. He told them of the warnings, the beams of impossible power, the mercy given at the last moment. His voice shook as he described the human who had appeared on the screen, a figure that looked like them yet carried the weight of something greater, something beyond. The council sat in stunned silence. Finally, one elder broke the quiet. If they have returned, what do they want? The admiral's answer was bitter. Nothing. They do not want our worlds, our fleets, or our people. They want only to watch, to judge, to warn us. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some shouted that this was a trick, that the humans were liars seeking to weaken them. Others argued that the Empire must gather every ship, every weapon, and strike back before it was too late. But a colder voice cut through the noise. Strike back? Against what? One ship destroyed 50 of our best vessels. One ship made us beg for mercy. Do you think we can face a fleet of them? Silence fell again. Even the most arrogant could not deny the truth. The Carthian Empire, once unchallenged, was now small before this shadow from the past. Across the galaxy, whispers spread to other civilizations. Some laughed, thinking it only a myth. Others listened carefully, fear growing in their hearts. A new question haunted them all. If the humans had such power, why had they left the galaxy in the first place? And why had they chosen to return now? On the silent edge of space, the human ship still floated, unmoving, like a guardian watching unseen. It did not pursue the fleeing Carthians, nor did it speak again. Yet its presence was louder than any fleet. Every passing vessel that came too close heard the same voice, cold and calm. Turn back. This region is forbidden. None dared to disobey. The galaxy was beginning to change. Old powers hesitated, their expansion slowed by fear of unseen watchers. Traders whispered of strange lights in the dark, of human ships appearing and vanishing without trace. Explorers told of ruined outposts wiped clean, no sign of attackers except the echo of the same warning. To many, it felt as if the galaxy itself now belonged to the humans. The Carthian Empire shrank within its borders, no longer daring to push outward. The admiral who had led them to disaster lived in shame, his name cursed, yet he knew he had witnessed something greater than pride. He had looked into the eyes of a human and seen the truth. They were not conquerors. They were not invaders. They were judges, and the galaxy was their responsibility. One night, standing alone in his chamber, the admiral whispered to himself, "They spared us, not because we deserved it, but because they chose to remind us." He knew then what the warning truly meant. It was not only for the Carthians. It was for every empire, every race, every proud ruler who thought themselves untouchable. Humanity had returned, and they had drawn a line across the stars. Those who crossed it would not be spared again. Beyond the edge of known space, unseen by all, other human ships stirred. Fleets vast and silent waited in the darkness, their power hidden but ready. They did not come as invaders, nor as saviors. They came as guardians of a galaxy that had forgotten its limits. The first warning had been given. The next time, there would be no mercy. And so the story spread from world to world, carried in whispers, in fear, in awe. Some called it a myth. Some called it a prophecy. But those who had seen it with their own eyes, those who had heard the human voice, knew it was truth. Humanity was back. And the galaxy would never forget the warning.